So what we call high art, or gallery art, that is limited, and I wouldn't call it elitist, because a lot of people who are from a less privileged background are doing it and getting appreciated for what they're doing. But it just remains a special group of people who understand, appreciate it. It'll take years. Maybe it'll happen faster, but it'll take, in my estimation, it'll take maybe 5-6 years for people to really understand what I'm doing personally as an artist, to understand abstract work. And
I think, does that sound like that's what's happening here?
Yeah, that's very, very similar to what's happening over here.
I would actually, Dhiraj, I'm not, as I said, I'm no artist, and I don't spend all my time in galleries, but from what I can see, yes, I think I would agree with you, even from what I see as a layman, that I think it's very hard for artists to make themselves heard, if you see what I'm trying to say. And it's not easy for them. I can't imagine that if you are from a less privileged or background that it is any easier. It probably gets tougher. I don't know if you agree or disagree with that, but it would seem to me that...
But I personally wouldn't use the term elitist, because good art speaks to everyone. And I remember this incident. There was a Picasso exhibition in Delhi, and I had gone to cover it as a reporter, and I was speaking to the security guard who was there, since there was no one there at the moment because it's just been inaugurated. And I asked him, what do you think? He said, it's all rubbish. There's one particular canvas which I like, the mandolin player. I like that because I can see a lot of things happening in that space.
Interesting.
So I like that observation. It really spoke to him, because he's been there inside the gallery for hours because he's guarding those ones. But that was interesting. So it does speak to everyone. It's just that not everyone has the time and patience to go through it.
And there is a universality about the whole thing.
Yes.
Anyway. Well, thank you both for joining us today. That was very pleasant and very nice to see two wonderfully energetic artists. Thank you very much for joining us on the
Thank
first
you so much for
class.
having me.
Thank you. Well, that brings us to the end of this bit, but we're still talking about art. So stay with us for a lot more. Welcome back from the break, everyone, and we're still talking about Pakistan and India. I love this. I've been able to say that for the whole show so far. We're still talking about Pakistan and India. We're talking about the art scene in both countries. Well, we talked to a nice, attractive young couple of artists, and we are going to talk to another. We've got Niilofer Farooq with us, and of course, she's a well-known independent curator for Pakistan. We also have Sahar Zaman, also on the set of the Sahar. Thank you, ladies, for joining us. And Sahar is an art journalist. So, Niilofer, what's happening on the art scene?
The art scene is vibrant, kicking, growing.
And in India, similar? Would you say the same thing?
Absolutely. Pulsating with life, going international, making a mark with all the top collectors internationally.
Do you think that respective art scenes are influenced? This question is like sort of for both of you.
I don't think so, but I think the Indian artists are definitely looking at the miniature artists. They're looking at this new phenomena that's coming out of Lahore predominantly, the new miniaturists. They're looking at it and seeing, how has this evolved? And I think that since it is very indigenous.
So how has it evolved? I mean, I know the heritage basically, but
how it has evolved,
why has it had a resurgence? Let me put it that way, or a renaissance.
I think two people were responsible for it. One was Zahurul Akhlaq, the modernists, we all know the eminent modernists from Pakistan, and Bashir Ahmed, I think his name is. And, he was the one, they gave them the skill, and Zahurul Akhlaq gave them the way to look at, miniature differently.
Do you see the same thing happening in India at all? A sort of resurgence of miniature artwork or not?
No, there's no resurgence of miniature. There's a whole lot of interest of miniature art that's coming in from Pakistan in the Indian art market. But I don't think either of the art from both countries is influencing each other.
That's
our style is very different. What's happening in contemporary Indian art today is that there's a huge resurgence, not resurgence, but it's a fresh scene there of installation art and new media art. But no influence as so to say, but certainly an interest of the miniature artists that are coming in from the NC and Lahore.
I was just wondering because, there's a lot of miniature art going on in Tashkent and places like that too, isn't there? Correct me if I'm wrong.
But not contemporary miniature.
That's right.
Okay.
I think they're still, even in Iran, they're still looking at the traditional miniature. They haven't so radically broken away from the tradition as we've done in Pakistan.
Question. Partition was a huge upheaval, I mean, for both parties, not for anyone. Do you know of any work immediately before and immediately right before partition and immediately after partition that you think was influenced by that whole? Was there anything going on at that time, which is indicative of
in India? What was very prominent was the Bengal School of Art. After partition, what happened was this group of artists got together and they said they wanted to break away from the traditional Bengal School of Art. They wanted to break away from the English company style of art, and they formed the progressive arts movement in the late 1940s. And that was completely breaking away from what had existed in the past. It was using the Indian ethos but doing it with straight lines. So at that point of time, their lines were very contemporary, but the subject was very Indian.
Yes, and I also feel, the same thing happened. Actually, what happened was the progressive artists that was, sort of came, there was a movement in Bombay. A lot of them came from JJ School of Art, and I remember interviewing Souza, and he told me what an exciting time it was. And he was a part of the groups that would come out and protest against the Raj. And he was thrown out of JJ School because of that. And then from that group went on to influence the Lahore artist group, which was our sort of counterpart of the progressive artists, in which you have people like Ali Imam, you had later on people like Shakir Ali. But when you say were they influenced by the partition, I was talking to someone who's been on the scene since the partition and has been very involved with the arts, although he himself is not an artist. He said that that trauma, they didn't want to revisit that trauma of partition.
That makes
they
sense.
wanted to move on with the new identity of Pakistan, and that's why I think it wasn't. You don't see painting
any
except,
graphic. You don't see any graphic.
Except maybe Jimmy Engineer later on painted the exodus of the people, sort of who came crossed over from Eastern Punjab to Western Punjab. But as such, the trauma has not been revisited, unlike the Bengali artists who, after Bangladesh came into being, extensively painted the trauma and exorcised it out of their system.
Why do you think that was?
I think because those artists were directly involved with the making of Bangladesh.
Right.
They were they were activists.
Okay, that's
political
what I'm saying.
activists.
Yeah, okay.
And because of that, they were able to,
express
sort of
themselves
express
better,
themselves.
yeah,
And they saw it all. And, I think maybe that struggle was a different kind of struggle.
That's true.
That was a people's struggle.
You would agree
in
with that? You would agree with everything?
I would agree with that. But talking about Indian artists and them being them showing anything about partition, it wasn't like a huge set of artists were doing that in the form of activism, but maybe just giving in a few personal examples, telling about their personal tragedy. Like, for instance, Satish Gujral, he did a partition series. He made portraits of people and the suffering around. But it wasn't like a group of artists getting together in the form of an activism and talking about partition. As Niilofer very rightly put it, they just wanted to look ahead, and that was the essence of the progressive artists group, of just looking ahead with a fresh spirit, with a free mind, and
some of the worst
newfound independence.
Some of the worst upheavals in the world have gone undocumented for that very reason, because they're just too horrific for people to have to sort of fess up to them. Anyway, hold your thoughts, guys, because most unfortunately we have to go on a break, but stay with us for more. We are talking about India and Pakistan together. I am going to drive that point home. I feel so strongly about it. And we're talking about art in both countries, and we still have the wonderful Niilofer and Sahar with us. Thank you. Okay. Much as we'd like it not to, we know that it does, and that is that politics influences art. Whether we like it or not, it does. The political state we're in as a nation, any nation, the political state of the people who belong to that nation do influence the art which comes out of that nation. Globally, I say this, it is a very generalized term. I know it's very brash in a way for me to say this, but I am going to say this because I do believe this. Fundamentalism is on the rise everywhere, not just in Pakistan, not just in Afghanistan, in India, in England, in Britain, in the US. Yeah. It takes different shapes and forms and sizes, manifests itself differently, but it is on the rise. Tell me, Niilofer, for Pakistan, and you also, Sahar, for India. We'll ask Niilofer first. How has this fundamentalist movement affected our art in Pakistan? Has it?
It did influence the artists, because if you remember, the figurative art was being frowned upon for the first time on, by the state galleries, so to speak, and calligraphy was getting the official patronage. So I think that somehow sent the message across that figurative art was something that was not kosher, demeaning, and it was sort of something that people should not enjoy. And I think obviously artists fought back.